By the time Noah noticed the old woman, she'd already become part of the sidewalk. That was how it worked downtown on a Friday afternoon. People turned into scenery. A man asleep on a bench, his head tilted back and mouth open. A musician by the subway stairs with his sax case cracked open for coins. A cluster of tourists staring up at glass towers, phones held like tiny shields against the sky. And the woman on the corner of 7th and Maple. She stood near the bus stop, but not quite in it, as if she'd been set down a few feet off her mark. Her coat was buttoned wrong, mismatched buttons making a crooked line. A faded purple scarf was tied in a careful bow under her chin. Her hair was a halo of tight silver curls, flattened where it met, an old wool hat, and she held a little black purse with both hands pressed against her stomach, knuckles white. People swerved around her like she was a lamppost. Noah saw her because his headphone died. 1 second the bass line was thumping in his ears as he crossed the street. The next there was a crackle and silence. He tapped at his phone, frowning, thumbs sliding over the cracked screen protector. The battery icon glowed, a stubborn red sliver. Great. Perfect. Now he'd have to walk home with nothing to drown out the city. He looked up, annoyed, and that's when he saw her. She was turning in a slow, small circle, like someone who'd forgotten what they were looking for. Cars whooshed by in the street. A bus hissed to a stop, discharged a flow of passengers, and rumbled away again. The woman's lips moved, but no sound reached him. A guy in a navy suit brushed past her, glancing at his watch. A girl pushing a stroller steered around without even a glance. 2 high school kids in hoodies crossed behind the woman, laughing at something on one of their phones. Nobody stopped. Noah slowed his pace as he approached the corner, his backpack strap cutting into his shoulder. He shifted it and looked away on instinct, pretending not to see her. There was something about the way she stood, alone but trying very hard not to look alone, that hooked at his chest in a way he didn't like. If she needed help, someone else would stop. There were 100 people on this block. At least. The crosswalk sign chimed. The little white figure lit up. The crowd surged forward. Noah went with it, carried across 7th in a wave of moving bodies and exhaust fumes. Halfway across the street, he found himself looking back over his shoulder. The old woman had shuffled a step closer to the curb, her gaze chasing the back of the bus that had just left. Her shoulders sagged in defeat, or maybe tiredness. A man in a neon orange delivery vest brushed by her with a muttered apology without slowing down. Noah's stomach twisted the way it did when his mom asked, "Did you feed the cat?" And he remembered he hadn't. That small, sharp guilt already forming excuses. Someone else can do it. I'm late. It's not my job. He turned forward again, jaw tight. His sneakers hit the opposite curb. He was through the river of traffic, a safe distance away. The crowd spread out. The city swallowed him back up. He walked 3 steps before he stopped. 3 steps were all it took for the guilt to inflate, for the thought to harden. If everyone is thinking someone else will help her, then nobody will. He stood there, the strap of his backpack digging a line into his palm where he'd grabbed it. Just go home, another part of him argued. It's not your problem. He'd been planning a gaming night. Pizza. New DLC that had dropped. No drama. No awkward conversations with lost strangers who might shout or smell weird or ask for money. His free hand fidgeted with the loose thread on the cuff of his hoodie. A bus roared past on Maple, the wind pulling his hair back from his forehead. All the noise and motion around him made him feel suddenly hollow, like everyone was moving on tracks, but he was stuck. He turned around. The old woman was still there. Noah took a breath and jogged back across the crosswalk, just as the light began to flash red. A car honked. He lifted a hand in apology, heart thudding, sneakers slapping the asphalt. Up close, she looked even smaller. The lines on her brown face were deep, etched from years of smiling or frowning or both. Her eyes were a light, foggy brown, the irises ringed with milky gray. They darted from the empty street to the bus stop sign to Noah himself as he slowed in front of her. Hi, he said, suddenly aware of how tall and gangly he must look, a 16-year-old in a faded hoodie and jeans, hair sticking up in ways he'd stopped trying to control. The woman flinched slightly, then focused on him. Her eyes narrowed, then widened, as if she were adjusting some internal lens. "Oh," she said. Her voice was soft but steady, with a trace of something warm under the worry. "Oh, there you are." Noah blinked. Yeah, it's me." He had no idea why he said that. She smiled with obvious relief. "You took your time," she scolded gently. "I've been standing here and standing here, and my knees are not what they used to be." Bus gone, people rushing, she shook her head. "I was starting to think you'd forgotten all about your granny." Granny. The word dropped between them like a misplaced puzzle piece. Noah started, then stopped. Her gaze was so hopeful, so certain that his brain stumbled. "Actually, I'm not. Always late," she went on, chuckling, not letting him finish. "Just like your granddad. Used to say clocks were suggestions." Her smile faded as quickly as it had come, replaced by a crease of confusion. "But he's been gone a long time now, hasn't he?" Her fingers tightened on the purse strap. Her eyes wandered again, uncertain, as if she were trying to locate something inside her own thoughts and finding only fog. Noah hesitated. The sensible thing would be to correct her, apologize, and keep moving. She'd realize he wasn't who she was waiting for. Maybe she'd find the person she actually needed. Maybe someone else. "Are you lost?" he asked. Her attention returned to him, as if he'd tugged on an invisible string. "Lost?" she repeated, testing the word. "No, sugar. I'm just misplaced." She laughed at her own joke, a low, rasping chuckle that ended in a cough. She pressed a fist to her chest, waited for it to pass, then sighed. "Trying to get home. But the buses keep coming and going, and I know I've taken this route before." Her eyes darted to the route number on the sign. "It's just they've gone and changed everything." Noah glanced at the sign. The paper taped below the numbers announced in bold letters. "Service change. Route 12 temporarily suspended. See Route 8 or 6. He winced. "Yeah, they shut this bus down for construction. It's been like that for a few weeks." "Have they?" she murmured, brow furrowing. Nobody tells an old woman anything. She chewed her lower lip. "Well, that explains a few things." "How long have you been waiting?" he asked. She looked up at the sky, as if the answer might be written there. Since the morning," she guessed. "Or maybe after breakfast. I had oatmeal and half a banana. I remember because the banana was greener than I like. But you shouldn't waste food." Her gaze slid past him to the street. "I thought if I got here early, I'd have time to stop by the store and be home before dark. But the buses..." Her voice thinned. Noah's chest tightened again, worse this time. She had probably been standing here for hours, in the noise and glare and fumes. People flowing around her, never stopping. Do you have a phone?" he asked. "Or someone I can call for you?" She blinked as if he'd suggested calling the moon. "Phone." She patted the pockets of her coat with distracted care. "I don't carry all that new nonsense. Too many buttons. My daughter says she'll get me one I could talk to like a person. Just say call so-and-so mama." Her lips twisted with fond exasperation. "I don't know about talking to machines. I still remember party lines." Noah had no idea what a party line was, but he nodded anyway. "You live close by?" he tried. "Close enough," she said automatically, the way people answered when they didn't want to give a stranger information. Then she frowned at her own answer. "No, not close. I had to take the bus here, so that's not close, is it?" She chuckled again, but it sounded brittle. Is this Maple Street?" "Yeah," Noah said. "This is Maple and 7th. "Oh." She blinked rapidly. "Well, that's not right at all, then. That's not where I'm supposed to be. I was on Franklin this morning. I remember because the bakery there has that smell, like butter and sugar and sin." Her eyes crinkled. "Then I saw the bus, and then I was here." Her hand trembled as it lifted, fingers curled, like she was still gripping something that had disappeared. "The driver said he'd tell me where to get off, but I don't recall him calling my stop. Maybe he forgot. People do that. Forget." Her gaze, for a second, was clearer than it had been since he'd approached. "Sometimes I think I forgot first," she admitted quietly. The words felt like they were meant more for herself than for him, like a confession that had finally found a listener. Noah shifted his weight from one foot to the other. The city noise swarmed around them. Horns, distant sirens, a dog barking, someone's music thumping from a car at the light. The air smelled like exhaust and pretzels from the vendor on the corner. He could leave. He could say, "Sorry, I don't know what to do," and let her drift back into the moving scenery. But now he knew she'd been there for hours. Now he'd heard the uncertainty in her voice when she tried to reconstruct her day. Now he'd watched all those people walk past her. He couldn't unknow it. "Well," he said, more briskly than he felt, "how about we figure it out? Do you have anything with your address on it? In your purse, maybe?" Her face brightened with sudden hope. "Now, that's a sensible suggestion." She fumbled with the clasp of her purse, her fingers stiff. Noah watched the effort, then reached out. "I can help," he offered. "You do that." She released the bag, letting him take it. "Thank you, baby." The endearment slipped out easily. It made Noah's cheeks heat, though he wasn't sure why. He opened the purse, careful not to peek more than necessary. A faint powdery perfume rose from the worn leather. Inside was a tidy chaos: a folded handkerchief, 3 receipts, a small pill bottle, a pack of peppermint candies, and a thin wallet. He pulled the wallet out and flipped it open. There was a tattered library card, a state ID with her picture, a senior bus pass, and a few small photos. A middle-aged woman smiling with an arm around the woman he now saw was younger in that picture, hair less gray. 2 kids in grade school uniforms making peace signs at the camera. The name on the ID read, Dorothy May Carter. Under it, an address on the other side of the river, near a neighborhood Noah only vaguely knew from news segments about revitalization and his dad's grumbling about property taxes. "Ms. Carter," he said tentatively, testing the name. She seemed to stand a little taller. "Yes," she answered. "Oh, yes, that's me." She smiled, satisfied. "My mama picked that name. Said it sounded like someone important." "It does," Noah said honestly. He read the address again. "So this is home, right?" He turned the wallet slightly, so she could see. She leaned in, squinting. "That's me," she confirmed. "And that's yes. Yes, that's where I live." She tapped the address with one short, square nail. "On the corner with the maple tree that leans like it has something to whisper." "Do you know it?" "No," he admitted, "but I can find it on my phone." He pulled his phone out, grateful it had at least a sliver of battery left, and typed the address into the map app. The route loaded slowly, the little spinning circle making his pulse jump. Finally, a blue line threaded across the screen. "Okay," he said. "It's a 40-minute bus ride from here. But not from this stop." He zoomed out. "We'd have to walk to 5th and Pine and catch the 8. That'll take us over the bridge. From there it's a few blocks." She looked up and down Maple Street helplessly. 40 minutes, she repeated. "Oh my." Her fingers twisted together. "And I've already been waiting," her mouth pressed into a thin line. "I can take you," Noah heard himself say. The words popped out before he could second-guess them. Her eyes snapped to his. "Oh no, honey, I couldn't ask that of you," she protested automatically. "You're on your way somewhere. Young man like you have places to be. I'll be all right. I just need to—" Her gaze drifted to the out-of-service sign again, the bold letters a cruel joke. He imagined her standing there as the sun moved across the sky. Imagine the lights of the city coming on, the flow of people thinning, the air turning sharp. Imagine her still waiting for a bus that wasn't coming. "I don't mind," he said, and this time he meant it enough that his voice sounded firm. "Really, I was just going home. I can text my mom." He hesitated. "Do you remember your daughter's number? I can call her too." A shadow crossed her face. "I used to know it," she murmured. "It was right here." She tapped her temple. "But things slip sometimes. She wrote it down for me, but I'm not sure where I put that little paper." She sounded angry with herself. "I had it in my wallet with the pictures. Maybe it fell out." Noah checked the pockets in the wallet. No scrap of paper. "Okay," he said. "Then we'll just go to your place. I'm sure she'll be there." "You're a very kind boy," she said, studying him. "What's your name?" "Noah," he said. "Noah." She rolled it around in her mouth like a flavor. "Well, Noah, I appreciate you. The world moves so fast these days. Sometimes I feel like I'm standing still, and it's the rest of you that's spinning around and around." She gave a little sigh, then straightened. "Let's go home, then, before my knees decide they've had enough." He offered her his arm. It felt like something from an old movie, but it also felt right. She took it without hesitation, her hand surprisingly light on his sleeve, though when she leaned just a little, he could feel the weight of her trust. They started walking. The city changed as they moved north toward Pine. On Maple, the buildings were glass and steel, storefronts with sleek logos, cafes with chalkboard menus, women in tailored coats and high heels clicking past men arguing softly into Bluetooth earbuds. On Pine, the glass gave way to brick, the clothing lost some of its gloss, and the music leaking from open doors was less likely to be curated playlists and more likely to be someone's favorite station turned up too loud. Noah had lived here his whole life, but he rarely walked this way. His neighborhood was east of downtown, a strip of small houses and apartment buildings his parents always described as up-and-coming when someone asked, with a tone that tried to make it sound like a good thing. The driver's eyebrows rose slightly at the, "I'm taking her home," but she only nodded. "That's the right bus for that," she said. "You getting off at Riverside?" "Yeah, that's what the map says." "Good." She tapped the printed schedule. "We'll be over the bridge in 15. Her eyes softened, settling on Dorothy again. "You okay, ma'am?" "I am now," Dorothy said with a small, dignified lift of her chin. "This fine young man is escorting me." "Looks like you lucked out," the driver said. Noah couldn't tell if she meant him or Dorothy. They found seats halfway down the bus. Dorothy chose the window. As they pulled away from the curb, she watched the city slide by with the absorbed attention of someone watching a movie about her own life. "I used to bring my students on field trips downtown," she said. "We'd go to the museum, and I'd tell them, 'Look at all these stories they tell in here. Some of them are lies. Some just don't tell the whole truth. You remember that?'" She smiled faintly. "Children are very good at spotting half-truths. Better than grown-ups, sometimes." "You're a teacher?" Noah asked. "Retired," she said. "Long since." "Third grade, most of the time. Little ones keep you on your toes. They'll ask questions you never thought to ask yourself." Her eyes twinkled. "And they don't pretend when they're bored." He laughed. He could imagine her at the front of a classroom, firm and funny at the same time. He thought of his own teachers, some faces already blurring, others standing out sharp with quirks or kindnesses. "Did you like it?" he asked. "I loved it," she said simply. "Most days. Some days I came home and sat in the dark and wondered if anything ever changed." Her fingers drummed on her purse. "You plant seeds. You don't always get to see the tree. That's all right, long as it's growing somewhere." She tilted her head, watching him. "What about you, Mr. Noah? Any idea yet what you want to plant?" He shrugged, embarrassed. "I don't know. My parents keep asking what I want to do after high school. They say I should start thinking about it now. Everyone's already talking about college and majors." He exhaled. "A lot. Who told you had to have all the answers at 16? She demanded. "Point me at them. I have words." He grinned in spite of himself. "Don't get me wrong," she added. "Dreaming's important. Planning's important. But babies don't come out knowing how to run. You have time to walk around the world a little, figure out where the holes in the ground are." Her gaze drifted back to the window. "Maybe you patch a few while you're at it." He thought of the holes she was living with right now. Gaps where certain memories should be. Patches that came loose at bus stops. "How long have you been having trouble remembering?" he asked carefully. She was quiet for a moment. The bus hummed. A toddler, too, rose up, babbled happily at his own shoes. "Depends who you ask," she said at last. "My daughter would say it started a few years back, when I forgot to turn off the stove and burn the rice. I'd say it started the first time I walked into a room and forgot why I was there." Her mouth tightened. "At first it's small things. You laugh. You say, 'Oh, I'm just getting old, don't mind me.' But then it's names, faces, directions you've known forever." Her fingers twisted the edge of her scarf. "It's like pages stuck together in a book. You know the story's there, but you can't quite read it." He didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," felt too small, too generic, like something people wrote in cards for every occasion. Dorothy spared him having to respond. She straightened her shoulders and gave a little snort. "But I'll tell you what," she said. "Whatever this thing is doing to me, it's picked a stubborn head to mess with. I write notes. I put things in the same place every day. I let my daughter help me even when it makes my jaw clench. And I keep going." She tapped her knee again. "These legs aren't done walking yet." He nodded, serious. "You seem strong. Strong is what you get when surviving is the only option, she said. You'll learn that. He wondered what his version of that would look like. His life felt soft in comparison, full of choices and cushions. His biggest worry lately had been whether he'd make varsity this year, and if his friends would still hang out as much once they started driving. The bridge rose ahead, metal ribs arching over gray water. The bus climbed, engine straining, then leveled out. Through the window, the river slid below them, broad and slow, splitting the city in two. Used to be, Dorothy said, nodding at the water. We weren't supposed to cross that line past dark. She pointed with her chin toward the river, but he knew she meant more than the water. Shops over there, schools, houses. There were places where folks like me, she tapped her own chest, weren't welcome. Not by law, not by custom. Didn't matter which. Her hand tightened on her purse. We crossed anyway. Sometimes. That's part of what the marching was for. I learned about that in class, Noah said, feeling the word learned shrink under the weight of her voice. I'm glad they still teach it, she answered. Although I worry they turn it into a neat little story sometimes. Once upon a time, things were bad. Then some brave people marched. Now everything's fine. She shook her head. It's messier than that. Still is. He thought of jokes he'd heard in locker rooms, of teachers giving him the benefit of the doubt in a way they didn't always extend to other kids, of a security guard who always seemed to randomly check the bag of the same boy on his bus. So, Dorothy said abruptly, breaking into his thoughts, tell me something true about you that's not on your school records. He blinked. Like what? Anything, she said. A thing you like. A thing you're afraid of. A thing you hope nobody ever finds out. She raised one eyebrow. You can leave that last one out if it's scandalous. He huffed a laugh. It's not. I don't. He rummaged in his mental drawers. I like drawing, he said finally. I don't talk about it much. I have sketchbooks. I draw people on the bus. Buildings. Stuff like that. I'm not that good, but it's relaxing. See, now that's interesting, she said approvingly. Teacher and me wants to get all up in that. Why don't you talk about it much? He shrugged again, cheeks warming. I don't know. My friends are into sports and stuff. It's not like they make fun of me or anything, but they joke probably. And my dad thinks drawing is cool and all, but he calls it a hobby. He made air quotes with his fingers. He always wants to know what practical skills I'm learning. Dorothy nodded. Practical skills. Like how to make a tired, old woman feel seen. She gave him a sideways look. He looked away, flustered. Anyone would have done what I did. She made a non-committal sound. Maybe, she said. But they didn't. The bus rumbled off the bridge. The downtown skyscrapers receded. They passed under an overpass, graffiti blooming on the concrete pillars, then rolled into a neighborhood where the streets narrowed and the houses sat closer together. Some houses looked freshly painted, bright siding and new windows. Others sagged under their roofs, porches leaning, boards gray with age. Yards were patchworks of patchy grass, chain-link fences, and once colorful playsets gone sun-bleached and cracked. Noah saw a mural here, too. A group of kids with backpacks standing in front of school. Their outlines bright, their faces serious. Above them, block letters proclaimed, "We deserve more than survival." The bus dinged. Riverside, the driver called. Noah stood. That's us, he told Dorothy. She rose slowly, joints protesting. He offered his arm again, and she took it gratefully. As they stepped down, the driver caught his eye. You bring her back tomorrow, she asked in a low voice, just for him. He hesitated. If I see her, he said. I don't live over here. The driver sighed. Her daughter's been calling the depot, she said. Came by once with a picture, asking if we'd seen her. Lady's been worried half to death. Guilt stabbed Noah. She's going to freak out, he said, more to himself than to the driver. She'll be glad to see her, the driver corrected. Kids never stop being kids in their mama's eyes. You walk her right to the door, you hear? Yes, ma'am, he said, feeling suddenly like one of Dorothy's third graders. The doors hissed shut behind them. The bus pulled away in a gust of exhaust. Which way? He murmured, checking his phone again. Dorothy peered around, disoriented. This looks familiar, she said slowly. That tree and that store on the corner used to be a laundromat. Or maybe it was over there. Her uncertainty hung between them. The map led them 3 blocks down, 2 over. With each step, Dorothy seemed to grow a little more sure, like her mind was matching the digital directions with a deeper, older map. "That's Mrs. Gomez's house," she said, pointing at a small blue bungalow. "She keeps chickens in her yard, but don't tell the city." "That there used to be a candy shop," she added, gesturing at a boarded-up storefront. "Guy who ran it was sweet as his taffy. Let kids work off what they couldn't pay for by sweeping." "That's the corner where?" She trailed off, her expression flickering with something like pain, then shook her head. "Never mind that." "You sure?" Noah asked, but she'd already moved on. They turned a final corner, and there it was, a narrow, 2-story house with peeling white paint and a wraparound porch that sagged slightly in the middle. The maple tree in the front yard did lean, just like she'd said, its trunk bending as if bowing toward the street. Leaves rattled in the breeze like soft applause. Dorothy let out a breath that trembled. "Home," she whispered. There was a car in the driveway, a dented silver sedan with a faded bumper sticker that read, "I vote." "Do you?" Before they reached the porch, the front door flew open. A woman in her 40s burst out, hair pulled back in a messy bun, scrub top wrinkled, sneakers scuffed. Her eyes were wild, cheeks damp. When she saw Dorothy, her face crumpled. "Mama." The word carried a whole night's worth of fear. She bounded down the steps, not bothering with the handrail, and ran to them. Noah barely had time to step back before she wrapped her arms around Dorothy, pulling her into a fierce hug. "Where have you been?" she demanded, voice breaking. "I've been calling everyone, the police, the hospital, the bus depot, every neighbor." "I'm all right," Dorothy murmured, patting her back. "I'm all right, baby. Don't you go having a heart attack on me now. I've been through too much to have to bury my own child." "You were gone all day," her daughter cried. "You weren't at church. Mrs. Patel said you never showed, and your phone was on the dresser, and..." She pulled back, cupping Dorothy's face in both hands. "You can't do that, Mama. You can't just disappear." "I didn't mean to," Dorothy said, small. "I was just trying to catch the bus." Her daughter closed her eyes, sighed, then opened them again, softer. "I know," she said. "I know you didn't. She swallowed. "I was scared." Noah stood awkwardly a few feet away, feeling like an intruder in an intimate moment. He shifted his backpack, not sure if he should say something or slip away. Dorothy's daughter noticed him then. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously on his unfamiliar face. "And you are?" she asked. He straightened. "I'm Noah," he said quickly. "I found her downtown, at the bus stop on Maple. She said she was trying to get home. I used the address on her ID and brought her back." The woman's suspicion didn't dissolve exactly. It melted into something else. Calculation, gratitude, residual adrenaline. "You walked her to the bus? Rode it with her all the way here?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." She looked at Dorothy. "He did that." "He did," Dorothy confirmed. "Took charge like a deacon." "He did. Asked for my address. Gave me his arm. Very polite." Hum. Her daughter's mouth twitched. She swiped at her eyes with the back of her wrist. "Well, thank you," she said to Noah. "Seriously, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't seen her." Her voice thickened on that last part. He shook his head, embarrassed. "It's okay. It wasn't a big..." "Yes, it was," she cut in sharply. Then, softer, "You stopped. That's a big thing." Her gaze flickered to the street, as though she could see all the people who hadn't. "I tried to tell him that," Dorothy muttered. "Boy has a hard time hearing praise." Her daughter huffed a half-laugh. "Sounds familiar," she said, squeezing Dorothy's arm. "Can we take this inside?" she added. "Before Mama catches a chill. Come in, please." She gestured toward the porch. "I'm Tanya." "No, that's okay," Noah started. "I should probably..." "Come inside," Dorothy said firmly, cutting him off. "Don't make me use the teacher voice." He obeyed. The interior of the house was small and tidy, with the unique mix of scents old houses carried. Dust, coffee, cleaning products, something frying recently in oil. Family photos lined the hallway. School portraits, vacation snapshots, Dorothy at various ages, her smile steady even as her hair changed. They settled at a round table in the kitchen. Tanya fussed over Dorothy, helping her out of her coat, smoothing her scarf, filling a glass of water. "You need to stop going on adventures without telling me," she muttered, unable to resist one last scold. "I didn't plan it," Dorothy protested. "The bus betrayed me." "The bus," Tanya repeated, exasperated. Noah hovered by the doorway until Tanya pointed at a chair. "Sit," she ordered. "You want something to drink? Water? Juice?" "No, thanks," he said quickly. "Really, I'm fine. I should text my mom." He pulled out his phone. The battery icon blinked ominously. He sent a quick message before it died. "Helping someone get home. Running late. We'll explain." 3 gray dots popped up immediately. "Okay. Be safe." He exhaled. "So how did you find her?" Tanya asked, sitting opposite him at last. She studied him with a nurse's practiced eye, checking for signs of trouble. He told her about the dead headphone, about seeing Dorothy turning in circles on Maple, about the suspended bus route. Tanya's jaw tightened when he mentioned the route change. They shut down the 12, but didn't bother to send any notices to the senior center, she muttered. "I found out from a neighbor." "Which neighbor?" Dorothy asked, distracted. "Mrs. Miller?" "Mrs. Gomez," Tanya corrected. "Ah," Dorothy said, nodding as if it didn't matter. "Maybe it didn't. Maybe it did. So how long were you out there?" Tanya asked her mother. "Not that long," Dorothy answered. "A few hours." She glanced at the clock above the sink, where the hands pointed at 4:30. "Maybe more." "Since 8 this morning," Tanya said tightly. "That's how long you've been gone." She looked at Noah. "I tried to file a missing persons report, but they said I had to wait 24 hours unless I had evidence of immediate danger." Her mouth twisted. "I told them she was old and forgetful and on foot. What more did they need?" Noah swallowed. "They didn't help? They logged it." She snorted. "Whatever good that does." "I'm right here," Dorothy said, suddenly sharp. "You don't have to talk about me like I'm a case file." Tanya closed her eyes briefly. "You're right," she said. "I'm sorry." She took her mother's hand. "I was scared. It came out sideways." Dorothy squeezed back. "I know, baby." They sat there for a moment, the air thick with what had almost happened and what still could. Noah looked at the flyers on the fridge, a calendar from the clinic where he guessed Tanya worked, a bright poster for a neighborhood block party, a list of emergency numbers. One number was underlined 3 times. "We've been trying to get her evaluated," Tanya said quietly, following his gaze. "You know, officially, for memory issues. But the waiting list," she shook her head. "Months. And in the meantime, every day is," she gestured helplessly. "This." Noah thought of his own doctor visits, where his biggest complaint had been a sprained ankle or seasonal allergies. His worst wait had been 30 minutes. "I can come by the depot," Tanya went on, back in motion. "Show them her picture again. Talk to the drivers. Maybe they can keep an eye out. I can't be in 2 places at once." "I saw one driver who recognized her," Noah offered. "On the 8. She said your mom had ridden with her this morning." "I'll bring her a gift card," Tanya muttered. She at least paid attention. She rolled her shoulders as if trying to shake off the tension. "Anyway," she fixed Noah with a stern look. "You said it's okay when I thank you. I want you to hear me. It is okay, but only in the sense that I'm grateful. Not in the sense that what happened is okay. It's not." Folks walked past her all day. He shifted, feeling heat creep up his neck. "I almost did," he confessed. Tanya blinked. "What?" "I almost kept walking," he said, staring at his hands. "I saw her, and I thought someone else will help. Then I got to the other side of the street, and I don't know. I just couldn't keep going." He waited for her to judge him, to say, "Well, at least you did something," with that tone adults used when you'd barely passed. Instead, she nodded slowly. "That's how it works," she said. "The first instinct isn't always the right one. It's what you do with the second one that counts." Dorothy, who had been following the conversation with her head tilted like a curious bird, smiled faintly. "See," she told Noah, "you got good reflexes where it matters." He smiled back, small but genuine. A clock chimed the half hour somewhere deeper in the house. "I really should go," he said, standing. "My mom's cool most of the time, but if I vanish, she'll freak." Tanya stood too. "Of course. Let me hold on." She dug in her purse and pulled out her wallet. "Take this," she said, counting out a few bills. "For bus fare and something to eat. For your trouble." He recoiled. No, I can't. Yes, you can, she said firmly. It's not a bribe. It's a thank you. You spent your afternoon making sure my mama got home. That's worth more than this, but it's what I can give right now. He hesitated, pride and practicality wrestling inside his chest. Bus fare wasn't nothing. His family wasn't broke, but money was always tight enough that his parents checked receipts twice. I'll take it for the bus, he said at last. But you really don't have to. I know I don't have to, she said. I want to. He accepted the money. When their fingers brushed, he felt the faint calluses on her hands, like his mom's after long shifts. Thank you, he said, for the water. And everything. Thank you, she replied, more solemn. For bringing her back. Dorothy stood too, slower. She reached for him. He leaned down, and she patted his cheek, her palm cool and soft. You come visit, you hear? She said. I want to see some of those drawings you're hiding. His eyes widened. How did you? She tapped her temple. Something still stick, she said smug. Don't let your talents stay secrets, Noah. The world's hungry for good art. He smiled, throat tight. I'll try. You won't just try, she said. You'll do. He didn't argue. He stepped back, waved, and left. On the porch, the afternoon light slanted gold. A distant dog barked. A car radio played a song he recognized. The world outside the little kitchen seemed indifferent to what had just happened. He started walking toward the bus stop, hands deep in his pockets, mind buzzing. He'd expected, if he'd thought about it at all, that this would be something he did and then forgot. A detour, a story to tell his friends later. I helped this lady today, it was wild. He hadn't expected her to lodge in his thoughts like a seed. Noah's mother was waiting for him at the door when he got home. Her blue scrubs were wrinkled, hair pulled into a tight ponytail, sneakers unlaced after a night shift. She had a mug in one hand and a frown on her face. You scared me, she said mildly, which he knew translated to I called you 8 times after your battery died, and now I'm trying not to ground you out of pure relief. Sorry, he said, slinging his backpack onto the bench by the shoes. I texted. Once, she said, with no details. He told her. The bus stop, the lost route, the address on the ID, the house with the leaning tree. As he talked, her expression softened from stern to concern to something like pride she was trying to hide. So you walked her to the right bus and took her home, she said when he finished. Yeah. She set her mug down on the table with a soft clink. You did good, she said simply. He glanced at her, searching for sarcasm. There was none. I almost kept going, he confessed, as he had with Tanya. I got across the street and then, I don't know, I felt gross. He grimaced. People were just walking past her, like she was a signpost. That's how it happens, his mom said. The bystander thing. Everyone assumes someone else will step in, so nobody does. She reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You listened to that little voice that said, don't be like that. That matters. He shrugged, half uncomfortable, half secretly warmed. It's not like I saved her from a burning building or anything, he muttered. You don't know that, she said. Maybe the building was just made of different kinds of danger. She sat down and rubbed her temples. You know how many older folks come into the ER dehydrated because they forgot to drink water? Or take the wrong meds because the labels are too tiny? The world isn't built for them. He thought of Dorothy squinting at the bus schedule. Her daughter said she's been trying to get her evaluated, he said, for memory stuff. But the wait list. His mom snorted. Don't get me started on that, she said. We diagnose people like her when they're already wandering miles from home. Then we pat ourselves on the back and send them home with a pamphlet. He sat across from her. What happens to them, he asked. She lives with her daughter, so that's good. But what about people who live alone? His mom's face grew tired in a different way. Sometimes neighbors step up, she said. Sometimes family comes back into the picture. Sometimes they end up somewhere with rotating staff and plastic plants in the lobby. She looked at him. Why are you asking? I don't know. He honestly wasn't sure. It just feels weird that she could be marching for her rights one decade and lost at a bus stop the next, and everyone just walked past. His mom studied him for a beat, then smiled faintly. You're thinking bigger, she said. That's good. Just don't let it crush you. You start seeing all the cracks in the system. It's easy to think, I can't fix this, so why bother? But you helped one person today. That's not nothing. He thought of Dorothy's phrase, you don't stomp on the ground because the seed's not a tree yet. I kind of want to see her again, he admitted. His mom's eyebrows rose. The lady from today? Yeah. He fiddled with a napkin. She used to be a teacher. She marched. She says she wants to see my drawings. He smiled crookedly. She's cool. His mom's smile widened. You're allowed to have friends older than your grandparents, she said. We could drive over there this weekend if you want. Bring some cookies or something. Check in. You do that. Why not, she asked. I've been meaning to donate some of your old books. Maybe she knows kids who'd want them. She reached for her mug again. Besides, I want to meet the woman who made my son think about something other than video games for more than 5 minutes. He rolled his eyes, but his chest felt light. Okay, he said. Yeah, let's do that. They went on Sunday. The sky was overcast, the kind of flat gray that made the city feel like it had pulled a blanket up to its chin. Noah carried a plastic container of chocolate chip cookies his mom had baked. She carried a tote bag full of children's books and a few art supplies she'd insisted on adding just in case. It's not charity, she'd said when he'd protested. Think of it as resource redistribution. Did you just make that up? He'd asked. Yes, she'd replied. But it sounded good, didn't it? When they pulled up in front of the house with a leaning maple tree, Noah's pulse quickened. He wasn't sure why he was nervous. It wasn't like this was a job interview or a date. The thought made him snort at himself. Tanya answered the door. She wore sweatpants and a t-shirt now, hair down, eyes a little less shadowed. Noah, she said, surprised. Then she smiled. You came. This is my mom, he said quickly. Mom, this is Tanya. And, Dorothy. Dorothy's in the living room, Tanya said, stepping aside to let them in. Please come in. She had the cookies. We accept bribes, by the way. It's a thank you for not yelling at my kid, Noah's mom said, offering her hand. I'm Lena. Couldn't yell at him, Tanya said, shaking it. He did me too good a turn. She led them down the hall. Dorothy sat in an armchair by the window, a knitted blanket over her knees, a TV murmuring quietly in the corner. She looked up as they approached. Well now, she said, her face breaking into a grin. If it isn't my escort. Her gaze slid to Lena. And you must be his mama. I can see it in your eyes. Lena laughed. Guilty, she said. We brought provisions. She held up the cookies and the tote bag. Come in, Dorothy said, waving them closer. Sit. Don't linger in doorways. It lets the cold in. They settled around the small living room. The air smelled like lavender and something savory simmering in a slow cooker. A photograph on the wall caught Noah's eye. A black and white shot of a crowd on a street, people holding signs. Dorothy stood near the front, younger, hair wrapped in a scarf, eyes fierce. That's from '68, she said, noticing his gaze. March on City Hall. They were going to shut down the only clinic on this side of the river. She smiled tightly. We convinced them otherwise. Wow, Lena said softly. You really have been at this a long time. I was born into at this, Dorothy replied. My mama was at it before me. Her mother before her. She patted the arm of her chair. Don't worry, we're not putting all the weight on your boy's shoulders. Just his share. Noah wondered what his share meant. Something in him straightened like a spine adjusting. They talked for an hour. About small things. Weather, food, the eternal debate over which local bakery made the best biscuits. Noah showed Dorothy some of his sketches on his phone. Photos of pages, mostly. Bus passengers, hands on poles, shoes tapping. A kid asleep with his mouth open. An old man staring out the window like he could see through time. These are lovely, Dorothy said, tracing the air above one drawing. You see people, not just their shapes. What do you mean? He asked. You didn't just draw a tired man on a bus, she said. You drew that tired man. The way his shoulders slump, the way his hand hangs. That matters. If you ever forget that people are not symbols, these pictures will remind you. He looked at his own work with new eyes. He'd drawn without thinking much beyond shading and perspective. But now he saw what she meant, the particular angle of a jaw, the tilt of a head. Do you ever draw yourself? She asked. Not really, he said. It's hard. I don't like seeing my face. She snorted. You and half the world, she said. Draw yourself anyway. You deserve to be part of your own story. Lena caught his eye over Dorothy's head. Her expression said, Are you hearing this? He was. At some point, Tanya disappeared into the kitchen and reemerged with mugs of coffee and tea. The afternoon slid by. Eventually, the conversation turned toward the bus incident. Lena listened, eyes narrowing, as Tanya described the department's response. We're going down there tomorrow, Lena declared. Not to yell at the drivers. They're as overworked as we are, but to talk to whoever sits at the nice desk with the nameplate. They need a better system for when folks like Ms. Carter get turned around. Good luck with that, Tanya said. I've filed complaints before. Complaints are one voice, Lena replied. Maybe we could be a few more. She looked at Noah. Your school has that community project requirement this year, right? He groaned. Don't remind me. Reminding, she said cheerfully. Maybe you and some of your friends could do something with this. A campaign. Flyers at bus stops. Info sessions at the senior center. He stared at her. You want me to start a club? The word tasted alien. Why not? She asked. Dorothy here taught a whole generation to read and argue. I'm sure she has tips. Dorothy's eyes gleamed. Oh, I have tips, she said. Step 1, bribery. Kids will sign up for anything if there's snacks. They laughed, but the idea lodged itself in Noah's mind anyway, right next to Dorothy herself. Over the next few weeks, visiting Ms. Carter became something that threaded through Noah's days. He went back the following Saturday, this time with his friend Malik in tow. Malik pretended he'd only come because he owed Noah a favor, but he brought a bag of chips in case they didn't have any good snacks. He spent the whole visit arguing cheerfully with Dorothy about which basketball team had the best chance this season. The Saturday after, 2 more friends came, curious. So you adopted a grandma? Lila teased. She adopted me, Noah corrected. He brought his sketchbook one afternoon, and Dorothy insisted on posing. Draw me like one of your bus passengers, she ordered, striking an overdramatic pose. The portrait he made was his best yet. When he showed it to her, she cried so suddenly and fiercely that he panicked. Did I do something wrong? He stammered, reaching for an eraser. No, she said, clutching the drawing to her chest. You made me look like myself. I haven't seen myself in a long time. He didn't fully understand, but he believed her. At school, the community project loomed closer. Every student had to pick an issue and devote a set number of hours to it. Write a reflection, make a presentation. Most of his classmates grumbled. Busy work, one of them declared. I'll just pick up trash in the park for a weekend. Noah found himself thinking of bus routes and memory gaps. In homeroom, when the teacher asked if anyone had ideas yet, his hand rose before he could talk himself out of it. Yes, Noah. Mr. Patel asked, surprised. You've got something in mind? Yeah, he said, feeling his ears heat. I want to do something with, helping older people navigate the bus system, especially people with memory problems, like making a program or something. His classmates looked at him with varying degrees of boredom, confusion, and mild interest. A program? Mr. Patel asked. What kind of program? He swallowed. I don't know yet, he admitted. But my mom works at the hospital, and I met this woman. He caught himself. This neighbor who got stranded because a bus route changed and nobody told her. And I was thinking we can make maps, or cards with addresses and emergency numbers. Or we could partner with the transit authority to, make training for drivers. The more he spoke, the clearer the shape of it became in his mind. Mr. Patel's eyebrows climbed. That sounds ambitious, he said. But if you can break it down into achievable steps, it could be a very meaningful project. A girl in the back raised her hand. My grandma takes the bus everywhere, she said. I'd help with that. Same. Another student chimed in. My neighbor has dementia. His wife is always worried he'll get lost. Interest spread, cautious but genuine. That afternoon, Noah went home with a stack of permission forms and a head full of plans. He told Dorothy about it on his next visit. She looked at him like he'd just told her he'd decided to move a mountain. Well, go on then, she said matter of fact. Start digging. I don't know where to start, he confessed. You start where you are, she said. What do you already know? What do you need to find out? Who else needs to be in a room? She ticked off the questions on her fingers. You talk to the people who live with this every day, not just the ones who sit in offices. That's what my mom said too, he said. Smart woman, Dorothy replied. They made a list. People to talk to, bus drivers, seniors at the center, staff at the clinic, social workers, the lady at the church who organized rides. Questions to ask. What makes it hard? What would make it easier? What scares you most about using the bus? What have you already tried that worked? He found himself sketching while they brainstormed. Little icons for each group, arrows connecting them. The project took on the shape of a diagram and a story at once. As he worked, he noticed something. The fear of not becoming anything that had gnawed at him before didn't feel quite as huge now. It sat next to a new feeling. The sense that he could, in small ways, impact the world outside his room. Even if it was just one bus route, one neighborhood. He wasn't a hero. He didn't want to be one. He just wanted to be someone who stopped when stopping was needed. Not everything transformed into a neat arc. There were days when Dorothy was sharp and funny, stories spilling out of her like coins from purse. She told them about the first time she'd been allowed to borrow a book from the library on the other side of town. About the student who'd become a lawyer and sent her a postcard from every city he visited. About the march where she'd been knocked down by a police baton and got up again, angrier. There were other days when she looked at Noah and called him by her brother's name. When she insisted she needed to leave for work and grew agitated when Tanya gently reminded her she'd been retired for decades. When she asked where her mother was, tears welling up when the answer didn't come fast enough. Those days hurt. Noah didn't know what to do with the hurt at first. He had no practice. His life had been mostly low-stakes pain, sprained ankles, bad grades, breakups that felt like the end of the world and weren't. But he learned to sit with it, to let the discomfort and sadness exist without looking away. Sometimes on the bus home after a visit, he opened his sketchbook and tried to capture that too. A hand reaching for something just out of frame, a face lit up with recognition, then clouded, a house that stayed the same while the person inside changed. He showed some of those sketches to Dorothy on her clearer days. She examined them with care. You're telling the truth, she said once, tapping a drawing where she sat staring out the window, expression blank. Don't stop doing that, even when it hurts. Is it okay? He asked. To draw you like that? It feels, I don't know, like I'm taking something. She shook her head. You're giving it shape, she said, so it doesn't eat you alive. That's what art is for. His project grew. He and his friends interviewed seniors at the community center, including Dorothy's bridge partner, who declared, if those buses had better signs, I wouldn't be playing hide and seek with my own stop. They talked to drivers who confessed they often saw the same confused faces on different routes, but had no protocol beyond radioing in. They met with someone from the transit authority who listened politely and then, to their shock, actually said, that's a good idea, when they proposed a test run of buddy rides, pairing volunteers with elderly riders for key routes. They designed simple, bold print cards with blanks for name, address, emergency contact, medications, and usual bus routes. Like dog tags, Malik said, then winced. Okay, that sounded bad. Like travel companions, Lila suggested. They printed stacks and handed them out at the center, the church, the clinic. Some people filled them out on the spot. Others tucked them into wallets with a skeptical, we'll see. Noah watched Dorothy write her information in careful block letters, tongue peeking out in concentration. Now if I get myself lost again, she said, all they have to do is read. I'm still going to worry, Tanya muttered, but less bitterly. They made posters for bus shelters, simple graphics reminding riders to check on elders who looked confused, with a hotline number for the senior center. Notice the person, not just the problem, the tagline read. That's cheesy, Malik said when he first saw it. It's memorable, Lila shot back. That's the point. At the end of the semester, Noah stood at the front of the school auditorium with his group, heart hammering, palms sweaty. A slideshow of pictures played behind them. Buses, bus stops, interviews, Dorothy's house, blurred for privacy, the cards they designed. He was supposed to speak about personal impact. When I started this project, he said into the microphone, voice wobbling just slightly, I just wanted to pass my class. A ripple of laughter relaxed his shoulders. I met someone, he went on, An older woman who had gotten lost because a bus route changed and no one thought to tell her. Or nobody told her in a way that stuck. He took a breath. I realized how easy it is for people to disappear in a crowd, even in a city that's full of people, especially if they're old, or confused, or just tired. He looked out over the sea of faces, friends, teachers, parents, strangers. He thought of all the small ways they moved past each other every day. We can't fix everything, he said. We can't rebuild systems overnight, but we can notice. We can stop. We can make it a little easier for somebody to get home. He talked about the cards, the posters, the meetings, about the pilot program the Transit Authority had agreed to test on 2 routes, pairing student volunteers with seniors who signed up through the center. And I learned, he finished, that when you listen to people who've been alive longer than you, you start to see the city differently. Not like a place that was built for you, but like a place that was built on a lot of things other people did and survived. And you kind of want to be worthy of that. His voice caught on the last word. He let it. He didn't look at his friends. He kept his eyes on a spot just over the crowd's heads and held the silence for half a beat longer than felt safe. They clapped, some politely, some with real enthusiasm. He saw his mom in the 3rd row, standing to clap. He saw the bus driver from the 8, off-duty in her civilian clothes, whistling through her teeth. He saw Tanya, one hand on Dorothy's shoulder. Dorothy was clapping too, slowly, as if timing her hands to someone else's rhythm. Afterward, in the milling chaos of congratulations and chatter, Mr. Patel pulled him aside. "I'll be honest," his teacher said. "When you described your idea, I thought that's a lot. But you followed through. Not just with the project requirements. With people." He smiled. "That's rare." "Thanks," Noah said, uncomfortable but pleased. "Keep that up," Mr. Patel added. "It'll matter, whatever you end up doing. Whatever you end up doing." The phrase no longer sent his thoughts spinning into a black hole of indecision. There were so many paths he could take now that he'd glimpsed new ones. Social work, urban planning, art, teaching, or something that didn't exist yet. He didn't need to pick today, but he knew this much. Wherever he went, he'd carry with him the knowledge that the city's edges were not as solid as they looked, that people slipped through all the time, that sometimes all it took to pull someone back was a decision not to look away. The last time he visited Dorothy that year, winter had crept in. The maple tree stood bare, branches scribbling on the gray sky. A wreath hung crookedly on the front door, its red bough faded. Inside, the living room was warm, a small space heater humming in the corner. Dorothy sat in her chair as always, blanket over her knees, but something in her posture seemed smaller, like a candle burned lower. "Hey," he said softly as he stepped in. "It's me." She looked up, eyes cloudy. She blinked, searching his face. "Who are you?" she asked. The question hit him like a fist. He'd known this was possible, likely even, but knowing and feeling were different things. "It's Noah," he said, "from the bus. The one who draws badly." He tried to make it a joke. His smile felt brittle. Her brow furrowed. "Noah," she repeated slowly. Then, suddenly she brightened. "Oh, the young man who got himself lost, and I had to walk you home." She laughed. He laughed too, though his chest ached. Something like that. Her gaze slid past him, unfocused for a moment, then returned. "You look familiar," she said. "Do I know you?" "Yes," he said, sitting in the chair opposite. "But it's okay if you don't remember." She said. "My mind's like Swiss cheese these days. Full of holes." She tapped her temple. "The good stuff falls through." "I don't think it all does," he said. She tilted her head. "What makes you say that?" He thought of her stories, her advice, her fierce eyes in that old photo. "You still tell the truth," he said. "You still see people, even when you think you don't." She considered this, then nodded. "That's something, I suppose." He pulled a folder from his backpack. "I brought you something." He handed it over. "Well, a few things." She opened it slowly. Inside were copies of his drawings. Bus passengers, drivers, seniors at the center, Dorothy herself in various moods. In between the pictures were short lines of text he'd written for his project, quotes from the people he'd interviewed, memories keyed to each face. At the back was a photo of the poster he and his friends had made, the one now hanging at half a dozen bus stops, reminding people to notice. Dorothy flipped through, lips moving silently as she read. "You made a book," she said at last, voice thick. "Just a little one," he said defensively. It's for the project. But I wanted you to have a copy. Because you're kind of the reason it exists." She looked up sharply, eyes suddenly very clear. "Don't you put that on me," she said, but her mouth trembled. "You're the one who turned around." "I know," he said, "but you're the one who kept walking all those years before. So it's both." She stared at him, then threw her head back and laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. "You're a smart mouth," she declared. "I like that." He grinned. Tanya appeared in the doorway then, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She watched her mother and Noah for a moment, something soft in her gaze. She had a rough morning, Tanya murmured later in the kitchen while Dorothy napped at her chair, folder clutched loosely in her hand. Kept asking where her classroom was. Wanted to know why the kids hadn't arrived yet. Her smile was sad. I told her it was Saturday and school was closed. She asked if it was summer. She shook her head. "Some days are like that." "I'm sorry," he said, meaning it. "Don't be." She sighed. "There are still good patches. Like now." She nodded toward the living room, where Dorothy snored softly. "She may not remember you every time, but her body does." "I see it. She relaxes when you're around." He swallowed past a lump in his throat. "Thank you," Tanya said suddenly. "Not just for what you did that first day. For all of this." She gestured at the house, the flyers stuck to the fridge, the stack of cards by the door. For caring enough to do more than just drop her off and vanish. He shrugged, looking at the dish towel on the counter. "I couldn't stop thinking about her," he admitted. About how easy it would have been not to help. How many times I probably walked past somebody like her without even seeing. "That's most of us," Tanya said. "You're just paying attention now." She smiled crookedly. "It's a blessing and a curse. Once you see, you can't unsee." He thought of all the buses he'd ridden in the months since, eyes scanning the seats automatically for anyone who looked confused or frightened. He'd helped 3 people find their stops. 2 had waved him off with a brusque, "I'm fine," later offering a grudging thanks. One had cried. "I guess I'm stuck then," he said lightly, cursed with awareness forever. "Welcome to adulthood," she said dryly. They shared a smile. When he left that day, the sky was spitting snow. He pulled his hood up and stood at the bus stop, breath fogging in the air. The bus arrived with a familiar hiss. He climbed aboard, glancing down the aisle the way he always did now. There, near the back, a man sat hunched, clutching a crumpled slip of paper, eyes darting between it and the route map above the windows. He was middle-aged, in a frayed denim jacket, stubble on his chin. His lips moved silently. Noah hesitated. This time, he didn't wait until he'd passed. He walked up to the man's seat and crouched slightly. "Hey," he said gently. "Need help finding your stop?" The man jumped, then focused on him, eyes wide. His fingers tightened on the paper. "Oh yeah," he admitted. I'm not sure where to get off." They changed the route, and his shoulders sagged. "I'm trying to get to Riverside Clinic." "I know that one," Noah said. "I can tell you when we're close." The man exhaled shakily. "Thanks," he said. "It's my first time going for this." He tapped the clinic address. "Don't want to be late." "You won't be," Noah said. It's a good clinic. My mom's worked with some of their nurses. You'll be in good hands." The man nodded slowly, relief and fear fighting in his face. "You a volunteer or something?" he asked. "You kids in the posters?" Noah glanced at the poster near the door as the bus pulled away. Noticed the person, not just the problem. Underneath was a small logo of his school's service club and the senior center. "Something like that," he said, smiling. "But mostly I'm just someone who knows what it's like to be lost on this bus route." The man huffed a small laugh. "You and me both, kid." They rode in companionable silence after that, the city sliding by outside, the bus humming along its path. At the right stop, Noah tapped the pole and stood. "This is you," he told the man. "Just head down that street, and you'll see the clinic on the left." "Thanks," the man said gruffly, standing. "Keep doing what you're doing, yeah? World needs it." Noah felt his face heat. "I'll try," he said. He watched the man step onto the sidewalk and head in the direction he'd pointed. For a moment, from this angle, the man's stooped shoulders and careful steps reminded him of Dorothy. He smiled, small and true. As the bus pulled back into traffic, Noah found a seat by the window. He pulled out his sketchbook, opened it to a blank page, and began to draw. Not a heroic scene, not a dramatic rescue, just a bus, a few passengers, a boy leaning toward a man with a crumpled paper in his hand. A moment where someone could have walked past. A moment where, instead, everything tilted just a little toward kindness. He knew now that the story wouldn't end neatly. Dorothy's memory would keep fraying. Programs might stall. Systems took forever to shift. He would get tired. He would make mistakes. He would sometimes wish he could go back to seeing less. But he also knew this. The world changed in increments. And who turned around? And who noticed? And who decided that not my problem wasn't good enough? Everyone walked past the lost black old woman that day, until he didn't. And from that small, ordinary, stubborn choice, a thread had extended through his life, tugging him toward a version of himself he hadn't known was there. He liked that version. He intended to keep following it, one bus stop, one sketch, one caught eye at a time.